Welcome to the Beyond the Suite podcast presented by the Salon Hub. I'm your host, Steve Cassano, founder of the Salon Hub, and today I get to talk to Kimberly Loomis, who is an amazing stylist out of Columbus, Ohio. She is a salon suite owner and an educator and so much more, and we get to talk to her about her journey from when she started in high school to where she is now, years later, becoming a 2023 Faces of Sola, a modern salon top 100 stylist, and so much more, and what she's planning on doing with her life and education in the industry from here on out. So if you are a salon suite stylist or owner and you're looking for an inspiring story of going from literally no one on the books to having a full book and becoming an educator and living out the dream of what a salon ownership lifestyle can be, this is a great conversation for you to listen to. Here is Kimberly Loomis. Okay, so to kind of start us off, I'm going to Tarantino this a little bit. We're going to start from where you are now, and then we're going to go back to the beginning where it all started, if you will, right? So just some quick monikers or accolades and awards that I've just noticed for you in the last little bit is you're a modern salon top 100 industry game changer for 2023. You're a Faces of Sola for 2023. You're also a behind the chair one-shot top 100 stylist. You're a New York Fashion Week stylist. You own your own suite in Columbus, Ohio at a Sola, and now you're starting an education company called Free Your Mind Education. What have I left anything out? Because it's quite a list.
No, I mean, I also help in my spare time. I also sit on the advisory board for local beauty schools, and I help form and write curriculum for upcoming beauty school students at the same school that I graduated from 20 years ago. But I also help go in and help mentor beauty school students and help teach classes to them as well. That would probably be my highlight of my career.
So
But yeah.
molder of minds on top of shaper of dews, if you will. So I like it. That's amazing. So Kimberly, we're here, right? It seems like you've had an explosion, as I mentioned right before we started here, an explosion of, maybe it's attention, but really just recognition. It seems like from outside um, entities here, right? I'm sure you've made a lot more impact within the students that you've been able to teach over the last few years. But, it seems like it's all kind of culminating in the last 18 months. Is there something that you are attributing to that? Or is it one that's kind of led to the other? Or is it just, I made this thing out of nowhere, so then that led to this and this and this? What's going on? Are you on steroids now? What is happening?
No, I feel like just having the opportunities. I feel like I've been able to do so many incredible rad things through our industry of working internationally with brands, working on magazine photo shoots, working New York Fashion Week, working Columbus Fashion Week. I've got to do so many amazing things in our industry that I feel like, you know, every step leads to the next part of the journey. And you can only see as far as you know to see. So, once I get to this goal, I could be like, oh, okay, that's really great. But by the time I make it to that goal, it's not really who I am or what I want anymore. And I was like, oh, but this is awesome. And there's just so many opportunities in this industry that I don't say no to anything and I'm 100% all in. So I've just been really lucky and really blessed over the last 2 years to have all the opportunities that I have. And I like to show them on social media. So anyone that's following me, they can see that there's different avenues behind or in our industry versus just being behind the chair all day.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. Very important too. So as I said, we're in Tarantino film for this episode, at least for now. So I want to take us back. We're going to go in the Wayback Machine. We're going back to when it all started. Before it all started, I'd say. Let's start there, which could be, a couple of years ago. Could be, I'm not going to ask you how many, because I'm a gentleman.
Thank you.
When you were thinking about where to go with not only your life, but your career path, what was the influence or what was your mind like? What else were you thinking about when you were like, okay, maybe I want to do beauty, right? What kind of led to that decision? Where were you, and why did you end up in the beauty industry?
Yeah, so unfortunately I didn't have anyone, no close relatives, no family friends that was in the industry per se. But as a kid, I was always creative. I always loved art. I used to color
Cool.
my Barbie's hair with my mom's makeup. Oof. Yeah. So I didn't only
I
cut
love
it, but
that.
I colored it, right? So like they
Right.
had a lot of like blue eyeshadow highlights and some black mascara lowlights. And then I came across, beauty school as an option. And this was a few years ago, and we didn't have the big box classrooms, the big box schools that we have available now. And so I went to a local JVS because that was our options back then. And I'm forever grateful for that. And that's kind of how I got started in this industry. And I've just slowly kind of grown from there and found my own journey and my own pathway throughout the years of being here and being behind the chair.
Right. So wait, was that decision then made in high school, after high school, junior high? What time
Yeah,
frame are
so
we looking
it
at?
was made in high school. So I went to beauty school my junior and senior year
Okay.
of high school and then took
Yeah.
my state boards and then tested out from there.
Wow. That's amazing. So you're in high school, you're a high school junior, right? And you're like, hey, I don't want to sit in math class anymore. I'd rather go learn. Do you like do like half and half? How did that work when you were coming up?
No, so I was 100% dedicated. So I
Oh, wow.
switched schools entirely and went full time to beauty school. And I actually loved math class. I'm a little bit of a math nerd, which helps,
Good.
right? It helps in our
I was going to
industry.
say, your formulas are probably thanking you now, right?
Yeah, the chemistry part of it. And, but yeah, so I went full time in high school and, you know, I love doing it. It was definitely a struggle bus because, going to beauty school, you're like, this is going to be so much fun and whatever. But then you get there and you realize like you have to learn the rules to break them, right? Like the old school saying. So beauty school set me up to be successful into our industry after testing out. And then throughout the years, I've just collected as many licenses as our state has. I carry three of the license that is available through the state of Ohio.
And what are
Um,
those three? Just so people know.
so I carry a independent contractor, meaning I can work by myself. That's a rule in the state of Ohio. I have an
Mhm.
advanced cosmetology license, which in other states might be known as like a manager's license. And then I also have my instructor's license on top of that. So I can
Wow.
teach classes, but also go in and substitute at beauty schools if need be.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So you've graduated beauty school, you've tested out, right? You're out about to go out on your own. What's the first step? Are you immediately into the like, I want to go out on my own, do my own thing? Are you apprenticing at a salon somewhere locally? What's the next stage for you look like?
Yeah. So my town was a very small town. We didn't have a lot of these big salons. So I started out with a very small chain salon and then realized that wasn't really my vibe. And then so I changed to another chain salon and I was like, "Oh, not really my vibe." And then I was like, okay, I'm going to try this salon. And then I was like, oof, very toxic. And I had that part in my career where, you know, I've stayed at a salon for like, up to a year. And I was like, I kind of outgrew it. And I was like, do I stay in this industry or do I keep pushing forward and try to find my place and find my voice? And that was a big turning point for me. And I went into this really large corporate salon and I managed it for 5 or 6 years. And
Whoa.
I am forever grateful for that. Yeah, we had an amazing salon. We turned it around. We had the top salon in tri-state area, which was fantastic. And I built the team from ground up. We had an amazing crew. But again, it came to that point where like I kind of outgrew it. And then 14 years ago, when I started in my own salon suite, is when I kind of merged into that next level of opportunities in my career.
So then before we get to that transition, right? So you're working within a salon structure, whether it's a chain or like a locally owned chain, if you will, or maybe an individual salon. How long of a time period is this? Is this obviously you were managing for 5 to 6 years, right? But you were working behind the chair, not managing, but kind of I would call that the worker bee status, right? For roughly how long? Like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, probably like a year and a half.
Oh
Like
wow. Okay.
it was a lot of change quickly. It was the first salon was good, but it was fine. I outgrew it
Yeah.
very quickly and the owner ended up selling it. So like that kind of pushed me into a whole new kind of salon. And then yeah, so it happened very quickly of me like, is this industry for me? Because I
Right.
felt like I was failing, right? Or it wasn't meant to be until I just kept pushing forward and pushing forward. And then I kind of found my own place.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. So then you go from all of, I would say working behind the chair to managing the salon. I'm assuming you're obviously working in that salon at the same time. It's not just management position, right? So you're kind of honing your craft still during that time,
Yeah.
staying clued in, that whole thing. So you're there for 5 to 6 years, right? You decide to go out on your own and do your own thing. Now, my question is, what does that decision point look like for you? What are you thinking about during this transition? Are you thinking about opening up your own brick and mortar? Is it just because the fact, you know, like suites are now finally starting to become a thing barely? Like, is that just like some new frontier that you're like, all right, well, I guess I'll try this? Like, what is your mind like if you take us back to that transition era for you? What are you thinking about? What are you concerned about? What are you most excited about? I kind of want to get in your mind in that time.
Yeah. So there was a lot going on at that time. I worked full time in the salon. I managed, I helped start up other parts of the salons and went into other salons if they needed help or support team. And I actually had a client come to me and was like, "Hey, you know, have you heard of this salon suites kind of you'll have your own space, you have your own vibe?" And I always wanted to be an educator. That's, where my heart is. I really, really believe since the day I got into this industry 20 years ago that I wanted to leave it better than how I found it. And so I've
Mm,
worked really hard and I've tried really hard to every opportunity, everything to make it leave it a little bit better than how I found it. And so I came across this whole sweet thing, and back then there wasn't a lot of information on it, right? There
right.
wasn't all of this education and support that there is today. So a lot of it was kind of finding my own pathways through this whole journey, right? Luckily I managed, so I knew how to do inventory, I knew how to do numbers, I knew how to do scheduling. I knew all that, but then going out on your own can be terrifying, right? Like, what if it works? What if it doesn't work? What if I don't have support? Whatever. And there was a lot of things pushing against me to start out on my own, and that could be a whole nother story. I really felt like the universe was like, nope, you need to stay in a corporate America kind of corporate salon. And I took the leap blindly, but I knew whatever I was going to do, I was going to do it 150%. So if I failed, then I tried my best. And that's how I went into it. And I've not looked back since then. I chose independence over a brick and mortar because there was so many different avenues in this industry that I wanted to pursue, that I wanted to try, that I wanted to travel down these roads. And I knew if I went into a salon that I would give 150% to this family, to this system, and I wouldn't leave anything left for me to be creative and to find my own pathway. So independent just has worked best for me as a beauty professional.
That's Yeah, that's a big decision, right? It's also a very interesting one. The fact that you had the forethought to recognize that, okay, if I'm going to go brick and mortar, I have to look after other people. I know that's going to take a lot of time away from looking after me, or maybe if I have any other interests down the road of what that looks like. So I'm not going to go brick and mortar. I'm going to stay very small and the smallest that you can get is one person, literally, right? Without with it being
Yeah.
a thing, and then kind of self-containing that. So you mentioned this, and we don't have to get too far into this if you don't want to, but you know, you had a lot of forces kind of working against you from corporate America's standpoint, right? I feel like a lot of people feel this. It's really set up for you to just be a cog in the wheel and do what other people want, and then you're good to go, right? Because one, taking responsibility is not the easiest thing to do when you're not used to it. Looking after other people, including yourself, and having responsibility for that is very hard. And corporate America makes these things feel giant, I feel like, a lot of the time, right? This is the tried and tested way of getting through this. You go to school, you do this, you do that, and then you are successful, whatever that looks like to them, right? You are defining your own elements of success, which I think is the precursor to really finding ways to go outside the box. But what were some, and you don't have to get into like crazy amounts of detail, but what were some of these forces that you were feeling kind of against you as you were considering? Because you had a lot of the knowledge that I think that knowledge gap is probably one of the biggest parts that people are afraid of when they go into salon suites is, well, I can balayage with the best of them, right? But balancing a P&L statement or even the words P&L, I have no idea, right? Or
Yeah.
I don't do inventory at my salon right now. I would just have, a few on the shelf and then hope that they move, right? And that's their strategy because they haven't gone through that process, right? You have all this education and this experience within that business element of it. So I'm curious to hear what these other forces are that you felt, because I'm sure other people are feeling them too or have felt them in the past.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say one of the biggest things is I worked so hard building somebody else's empire when I could spend the time building my own empire. And the one huge thing that I can recall, which isn't as much as the same as everyone else's journey, is when I looked into the salon suite and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I called my area supervisor and I was like, hey, like, can we have a call or a chat? Can you come in? Like, and I was putting in my 2 weeks notice that day, like when she came in. And I'm waiting for her to walk through the salon. And the FedEx guy comes in and he was like, hey, Kimberly, can you sign for this package? And I was like, sure, absolutely. It was like a little like time stamped envelope. And as a manager, like that wasn't normally out of the norm, but like this was in my actual name. So I had to sign for it as personal, not manager. And so I opened it up and I found out that I won the top colorist in the state. So I won this huge trip to Vegas and it was a
Whoa.
whole ordeal for Matrix and because that's the color line we used back then. And I won this huge award and I kind of holding on to it and my area supervisor walks in and I'm like, "Oh no, what do I do?" Like, is this the universe's way of saying, "What are you doing? Don't go out on your own," kind of concept. And so I'm like sitting there and she walks through and I was just like, "Okay, like take the trip, think about what you want to do, like just you don't have to rush into anything right now, right?" And so I was like, "Oh, I didn't." And I was like, "Oh, I needed help with X, Y, and Z." And I went back to the suites that I was going to go into. And I was like, hey, I won this trip. Like, I was going to come after this trip, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, yeah, absolutely. And I sat on it. And I realized that that's not who I am as a person. And I know I won the trip and I know that I totally deserved it, but I couldn't in good heart take this trip knowing that I was going to come back and leave the company. Right. And so I called my boss and I was like, hey, and I was like, I just got to let you know, like, I'm giving this trip back. Like, thank you for the opportunity. But like, I'm going out on my own. And she was like, well, that's so dumb. Like, I would have taken the trip and then quit. And I was like, well, part of me thought about it, but then I was like, that's not who I am as a human. Right. And I just
Right.
couldn't do that in good faith, knowing that, like, hey, thanks for paying for me to go to this huge, like, 5-day trip to Vegas for this huge hair show knowing that I was going to quit. So I gave it all back because I believed in myself and I believed in going independent so much that it just wasn't
Yeah.
worth it to me. So
Wow.
craziness.
That's some high density moral fabric right there. That is
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome for you. I mean, again, I totally get it. And it is weird how the world tends to I mean, you could see it from two different ways, right? You could see, okay, this is them trying to get, maybe this is a sign that I should stay and go to this, or it's a, they think I'm this good. Maybe I am as good as I think I am.
Yeah.
And this is proof. Let's take this and run with it, right?
Yeah.
So that's also really great. I mean, you also had the opportunity, and this is again, I think, where your high density moral fabric comes into play is take that, put that on your resume, and then open up a salon that just says best colorist in the state by Matrix, right? Like that would be a crazy level of social proof that a lot of people wouldn't have starting out. And you're just like, I'm going to take the high road here.
Yeah.
I mean, good on you, right?
Yeah. And 6 months into going independent, I actually didn't even know this. 6 months into going independent, I actually won somehow in Columbus Monthly Magazine, the top three highest colorist in Columbus, Ohio. Like, yeah,
You didn't even
one
put
of
your
the
name in it
style
or anything like
didn't
that. It
even.
was
I have
just
still to this day. I am so blessed. I still to this day have no idea. My one of the stylists was like, "Hey, Kimberly, did you see the newest Columbus Monthly magazine?" I was like, "No," and they were like, "You're labeled as one of the top colorists in all of Columbus," and I was like, "What?" Like, the universe works out that way. I was like, "Okay." So
that's incredible. I
I was
mean,
I was
shows, I mean, a
lucky.
testament to your work, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I was very lucky.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
Wow. I mean, again, that's the community paying it back to you, right? I mean,
yeah,
karma. Karma can be
yeah.
great if you put the
I
right inputs
believe in
in.
it. Yep, I really believe in it.
That's amazing. So you leave, right? You turn down this trip to Vegas. You get into your suite. You turn the key, right? You open the door and it's empty. What are you doing? Like what is going through your head? You're in day one, you're out on your own. Did you do you have a book? How full is that book? What's the plan for the suite? Like what are you most worried about in this moment? Are you just like, yo, this is the best thing ever. We're gonna crush this and I'm not worried about X, Y, or Z because it'll take care of itself. Like what is your mentality here? Because this is the part where I think everyone enters in a different mindset based on their like where they've been. You've had a lot of experience. You obviously have proof that you're good at what you do that just came in the mail and you turned it down, but you're like, got it. Great. Thanks. What happens now?
So I showed up 30 minutes before my schedule to set up for the day, and I was already booked for 7 hours already before I even started my shift that morning. And I had an amazing family, which I still do to this day. And they came in and they were like, "Hey, Kim, like my kid needs a haircut." And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I was like, "I'm going to be at least 7 hours." And they're like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "Yep." And they were like, "Okay, we'll try tomorrow or something." Little did they know that was my last day. Like, and I was like, "Okay, no worries." But my clients found me through social media and through everything. And I remember my first day, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I get a lunch break. Like this is glorious." Cause that's back in the day when, we didn't get lunch breaks. And I was like, "This is amazing. I can go to lunch every day." Like that lasted like 2 whole weeks and then it was gone.
Right.
Um, I
Yeah.
enjoyed those 2 weeks of lunch breaks, but it's just crazy how the industry has changed, right? From 14 years ago to now, what's acceptable and boundaries and everything. And so I went out on my own, but I knew I was going to give 150%. And so that's what I gave. My downtime, I was trying to figure out how I can get more clients. How can I get the clients that I want? How do I get the clients that I need? I would say the biggest problem, turnkey, open and empty salon, is that's still relevant today that it was 14 years ago, was finding who you are as a stylist, who you are as a salon. What is your brand? What do you want to put out in the world? I find that is a huge thing in our industry of going independent, of people not really sure of who they are or what they want to be or what kind of salon they want to have. And I really believe that in this industry, what you put into it is what you get back out of it. If you want to just go in, cut some hair here and there, you want to do it for some side money, that's all you're going to get out of it. But if you put in that work and that effort behind the scenes, it pays off tenfold in the future. And you can make this into an amazing, very, very, very successful business.
So when you say put in that effort behind the scenes, what do you mean? Because if I'm a young stylist, right, and I'm hearing this from you coming
Yeah.
from like, even though this happened in a different decade, right? Social media was not as powerful as it is now. Because you're saying like you gained, notoriety through social media and things like that, but like Instagram in 2010 was a very different place, right?
Very different place.
Not
Yeah.
a lot of businesses, right? There wasn't even the business account yet, right? So it's
Yeah.
just kind of people sharing photos of their dinners mostly still, right? And that's acceptable. So when you say behind the scenes and putting in work, what does that look like? Is that just making sure that you're in the space, that you're decorating the space, that you're going to other businesses maybe and trying to market that way? Like what does it look like for you in those early days for marketing, for operations, things like that?
Yeah. So as far as building a clientele, referrals, 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 referrals. 100%. Referrals is the best thing ever. And if you're not getting referrals, you need to ask yourself why you're not getting referrals. You should be gaining new clients on a regular basis. And there's a whole lot that can go into that itself of the client
Right.
experience to price point, right? We talk more about that now today. Um, but also designing my salon around what I wanted to be. So I went to the salons that I wanted to be. I went to the businesses that I wanted to be. That's the kind of clientele I want. That's the kind of business I want. So I would go to these businesses and figure out what they're doing, how they're doing it, right? And then customize it and make it my own and bring it back. But also like giving my clients that extra level of experience when they come in of like not calling off work every day. I know that sounds crazy, but having that trust built up and building that trust with them throughout the years to where they will refer people to me or they do trust what I'm doing. And yeah, so it's a lot of different kind of
Elements.
things,
So
elements,
so
yeah.
when you're going out and you're looking at other businesses, and can you give us an example of like something that you saw that you took and kind of made your own from another business? Because I'm just curious in what that looked like for you. I mean, it's what a lot of people do, right? For good reason, right? You want to borrow the things that work and
Yeah.
maybe leave out the things that don't. But what does that look like for you? Or just an example, right? Because I just want to hear, for those kind of setting themselves up for success, and maybe you're like, oh, that is a good idea, but like, what exactly am I borrowing? What
Yeah.
did she
Yeah.
borrow?
Yeah. So like I would go to like a top salon and like not only even getting my hair done, but like I'll go get a massage or a facial or like a mani pedi, like something. Um, and then see how their atmosphere is, see what their environment and decor is, see how I was greeted, see how my service was from start to finish. What are the little things that they're doing? Even gently or asking, "Hey, do you want something to drink? Are you thirsty? Would you like a bottle of water?" Like the littlest things, being greeted by name, like makes you feel like the best thing
Yeah,
ever, right? You're like, "Oh my God, they know my name." Like they took the time to learn just that about me. It makes you feel
right.
special. And I'm constantly trying to do that even behind the chair here of like, how can I elevate my experience for each one of my clients? And so I've taken that and paid very close attention to what makes me feel good as a person and what I want to, bring back and put out into the world.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's exactly. It's a ton of fun because everyone does it a little bit differently, and it also feels like, unfortunately, the bar is fairly low, right? The fact that knowing your name when you walk in the door is a
Yeah.
massive jump is a little sad, but real.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of things that, especially as an independent stylist going on your own, you can make these changes and you can do this because
And they don't
you're in
cost
control.
anything. Like the
Right. It's
littlest things
free.
doesn't cost anything. Send a follow-up text message or email or contact of some way and be like, "Hey, I seen you
Yeah.
were just in last week. How's those bangs working out for you? Or how's that shampoo that you purchased?" Or
Right.
like You know what I mean? Like just the littlest thing makes a
Yeah,
huge difference.
it's attention, right? It's that customized attention that people kind of strive for that is hard to do when you're at scale. If you were in, 14 cities, it'd probably be much harder, but you're
Yeah.
not. You're in control of your one location and you can do whatever you want within those four walls. Well,
Yeah.
within reason, but still, right? It's up to you. The level of service is up to you at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So you're going out and you're kind of collecting all these little bits and pieces and forming your own salon. How long from day one having zero book because you refuse to bring anyone with you, which I find insane, but
Oh, they found me, but
admirable.
yeah,
Yeah, right. It's crazy that you're like, all right, here's my book. I'm bringing it with me. This is great because now it's standard practice, right? I know that we're, you know,
yeah.
well in in the past here. Again, Instagram is full of food still, um, and so you're from day one. You don't have a book to your book is full, or at least you're operating under the pretense of like,
Yeah.
okay, things are finally like level. I'm good. I My needs are met, and we're worried about growth rather than surviving, right? Like, how long of a period was that for you, roughly?
Roughly, I would say a year, maybe. Like, and that's like a year of having books where I'm covered and more. Where a year into like I'm covered, my bills are covered, and now I can start my savings. Now I can start upgrading stuff. Now I can start like, oh, how can I elevate this experience? Or how can I, customize this a little bit better? Or how can I make this more high end? I would say a year into it. And then within 3 years, probably my books were completely full. And then within 5 years, I didn't even print any business cards, nothing. Like, absolutely. I haven't had business cards in over 15 years. Like, just no, nothing.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got beautiful hair and heads walking around doing all the work for you, right? Like you
Yeah.
got built-in business cards for
Yeah.
real. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy, especially with the work that you do, right? Because I mean, we can start to get into that a little bit around like where your specialties lied, where maybe did you start somewhere and then you kind of grew into a different level of service that you're now known for. I kind of want to hear that trajectory through this part. And we'll get to like the end of your story here, or like not the
Okay.
end, but up to date, I would call
Yeah.
it. But when you started back, you know, day one, what was your menu like for your clients? And then how has that shifted over time? Or is it pretty much
Yeah.
the same?
No. So, very first out of school, all I did was pretty much haircuts. Like, that was pretty much it. Cause I was like, okay, this is easy. And to be fair, I started in a salon on a work permit because I had the grades and the hours. So I didn't even technically have my license. I had this huge, like, neon green sign on my station that was like, work permit, not licensed stylist. Like, how embarrassing is that? But I did it.
Wow.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was a learning, right? Everything's a learning curve. Everything's learning. We're constantly learning and growing. But so I started at just kind of haircuts, and then I've worked my way up to like color and then like basic color. And then I worked my way up to advanced color. And that's where I really enjoyed it. I took this crazy 3-day boot camp that changed all of our chemical equations into like mathematical equations. It was insane. It was like one of the hardest classes I ever took, but it was the best class. And that's kind of how I formulate now. So I love like color correction and I love this whole thing of taking someone from one spectrum to another spectrum and then growing into like, healthy hair and the right products and then, more detail to the chemistry side of it. And so I've just kind of slowly grown into what I do now. Um, I loved rainbow hair before it even came out. I remember using in my own hair. I had a shaved hot pink and purple mohawk. And this
Oh, I love that.
brand only had like 4 colors. And then it eventually launched into a huge brand that is today. But like that was super cool. And putting color into people's hair and just changing even just a haircut just by color, right? was a huge thing to me. And so I've kind of grown into a color specialist over the years. I would say that's the one thing I do specialize in is color because I take people from black to blonde and blonde to black and rainbows and different sides of the spectrum and everything, all while maintaining health of the hair, right? And there's times where I've told people no, where I'm like, we can't do that. It's going to melt your hair off. And instead of just taking their money and was like, okay, well, we got to cut 17 inches off, right? Like
Right.
just making sure I maintain healthy hair in the process. So, just
Yeah.
constantly growing my craft.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And what an amazing journey through all of it, I'm sure, right? So kind of harping into that a little bit, right? So you are starting with your salon by yourself, right? And you're alone and you're making all of these business decisions, right? Some of them are probably right and some of them are probably less correct in terms of your long-term goals and what's going to get you there, but obviously you make these decisions for a reason.
Yeah.
What do you think starting out was like the best decision that you made when you started and then maybe the worst? I kind of want to hear both ends here.
Okay. So the best thing I would say, my best decision, giving every client 100%. No matter what kind of day I had, no matter what was going on, no matter what they're going through, just giving them 100% is what made my business succeed. 100%. Um, because without clients, we don't have a business. And
Right.
I am lucky to have clients from the age of 2 to 92 in every walk of life in between. And so I have to change who I am constantly throughout the day, like just constantly. And right out of beauty school, I was told to give my last client the same time and energy that you give your first client of the day. And that has stuck with me. And I've stayed true to that. I have always given 100% to every client. And I think that's the best advice I could give to someone. As far as stuff that didn't work was not believing in myself. Like there was a lot of times I was told no. There was a lot of times I didn't make it or I wanted something so bad and I was like, "Yes, I really want this," and I didn't make it or I was overlooked or they were like, "Babe, you're just not it." And I just kept going because like there was times where I stopped believing in myself and then I had like those stagnant periods in my career where I was like, this is all I'm going to do. And then like as I get older, like the more I'm just like, I'm gonna put out in the universe what I can and take what I can and be humble with every experience because I did start from the bottom and I've had to work my way up for every opportunity that I've been given. So I would say the biggest thing was not believing in myself enough, even when no one else did.
So I'm going to press on that a little bit.
Yeah.
So as you hit these plateaus, right, or maybe even dips, right, or plateaus that turn into dips, which is very common
Yep.
for a lot of entrepreneurs, whether you're in the industry or not, what got you out of that rut? Right? Like a lot of people find like a weird little bounce after they dip for a little while. They're like, they hit something and then they're back up, or they like have an idea that pulls them out of their rut, if you will. What for you consistently did you end up finding? Because again, if you're in the business of business long enough, right? If you're running your own gig long enough, you realize there are certain patterns and things that you can do to get out of the constant roller coaster. And when it goes too far down or when you dip, certain things that can pull yourself back up. What have
Yeah.
those been for you? Is that true for you? And then what are those for you in your instance, that have consistently you've been able to lean on, whether it's positive self-talk, whether it's, you know, just leaving the salon maybe for like 3 days in a row just to get out and then get back into it. Like I've heard a lot, but I would love to hear what you do.
Yeah. So I would say find something that empties your bucket and fuels your soul. So for me, like art is my jam. And any time that I hit like that bottom plateau and I'm uninspired, I'm whatever, like you will find me at an art gallery somewhere, just like wandering around and like living my best life. The Met is where my heart is. I love the Met so much, but that's how I refuel. That's how I get recreative. I look at these palettes and these artists and just everything, and I get re-inspired from that, but also other people in our industry. Like there's so many amazing, incredible people in our industry that are super inspiring. And I have always been huge on education. I know I would talk about it often, and I would always take classes. Like, even if it was a brand I didn't use or a class that I've taken a billion times, I can always learn something else. I can always get re-inspired. And I think finding something that makes you happy and re-inspires you, but also re-inspires you in the career as well, right?
Right.
I think that's a big thing of like staying in tune with our career because sometimes when we plateau, that's because we're not growing anymore. So
Yep.
elevating ourselves of learning new techniques that we're excited about, we bring it back to our clients and then they're excited about it. And then kind of that whole energy comes back
It's a whole
into,
nother cycle. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
100%.
I totally agree. Right. If you're not, don't feel growth, learn. Right. And that's going to fuel
100%.
90% of the time. You're just going to be like, oh, okay, this is nice. Like most ideas come from just learning something new.
Yeah.
It changes
And
your frame.
a different perspective of something, right? Like we can go to 50 million balayage classes, but everyone can paint hair differently, right?
Right.
It
It's paint.
it's
Literally.
paint,
You
literally.
are painting in a different style. I totally
Yeah.
get it. All right. So to kind of push through the end of your story to bring us up to date, right? So your book's full 3 years in, right? No more business cards, no more nothing in terms of outward aggressive marketing, we'll call it, probably, I would say, based on what you said. And so what do those years look like where you're like, my book's full. I don't need to really worry about growing my business now because I don't have there's only so much time that I want to be doing this or that I can do this because time is a finite resource. What are you doing with those 10 years, those 12 years, right? Um,
Craziness.
obviously I was going to say there's definitely an element of education I can see, obviously, right? A reinvestment in the community. But take us through what that looks like to make sure that you stay fulfilled and that you aren't plateauing and you don't feel like you're stagnating. Because once you hit that top ceiling of time, what else are you doing? Are you just raising prices and lowering the number of people on your book so you have more time to go do other things? What does that look like?
D, all of the above. So I
Great.
really I put right, done. We're done. Easy peasy.
We're done. Good.
Um
All right. Next. No.
um so I really I put in the hours for those 3 years. I put in that grind for those 3 years to give me a successful business, to give me a platform. So that way I could be comfortable so I could then focus on all the stuff that I really wanted to, right? I worked the hours while everyone else was sleeping. Um so going from there is when I was like, I've always wanted to be an educator. My heart is in education. I really love taking classes. How can I give back to our industry? And that's where, even in that journey, I've hit a lot of plateaus and a lot of no's. And, I had this brand that I was working with reach out to me and they were like, we'd love to have you as an educator. I went to Santa Monica for a week. I was like, my dreams are coming true. I'm doing this. It's happening. And I came back, I passed, I did well. And they were like, "We love you. We love who you are, but you have to change everything about you." And I was like, "Oh." And they were like, "You have to wear all black and you have to come into literally, you have to come into a room and everyone should be envious of who you are because you're the educator. And you don't wear enough makeup." And like just the most obscene stuff ever. And I came to that
Wow.
turning point of like, do I give up on who I am, who my authentic self is for this dream job? Right. Like I was like, oh my God, this is with a huge company. And I had this turning point of like, do I stay true to who I am or what I want? And I actually walked away from it. And I said, it's not for me. It's not the right time. It's not. I have to, in the end of the day, all I have is myself. And
Right.
so I walked away from it. And then, like 6 months later, another brand came along and was like, oh my gosh, please try our products. We want you to work with us. And I was like, no, bro, I'm not interested. Like, I've been through this. I'm not doing it. Right. Like, no, thank
Yeah.
you. And I gave up on education. Again, I gave up on myself and my dream. And I was like, nope, I'm going to work on my business and figure out what my next path is. And they were like, no, 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 please just trust us. And that itself is a whole story. Long story short, I ended up working with this brand. I love this brand. I'm literally the brand ambassador for North America and Canada. I travel all over. I spent a month in Australia. I was one of their top educators. There was a team of us, 10 people worldwide that worked with this company. And
Wow.
I grew very quickly in the company and I worked with them. And then COVID happened and I was cutting hours. Yeah,
Yep.
I was cutting hours behind the chair and I was working 3 12-hour shifts. And then Saturday morning, I would catch a flight and I would teach Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So 3 classes each day, catch a red eye home Tuesday night, and then work 12 hours Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, catch a flight Saturday morning. And I would do that for months and months and months. So I would normally go about 3 days without a day off. So, like the first month, January 2020, I spent in Australia. I came home, and in those 6 weeks, I spent a week in Canada, 2 trips in New York, a trip to Michigan, a trip to Pittsburgh, and a trip to Texas, just within those 6 weeks, plus working full time behind the chair. And COVID happened, and then I kind of reassessed my life. And I was like, what am I
Yeah.
doing? Like, again, here I am building someone else's empire. Like, what do I want to be? What do I want to leave to this industry? And what am I actually putting out? And I'm forever grateful for it. I outgrew it very quickly, and there was no other way for me to grow up. And
Right.
so I walked away. And then here we are, the last like 2.5, 3 years. I've been able to do some really crazy, amazing stuff. And win some amazing awards and work with some incredible people and been given a lot of amazing opportunities that I'm forever grateful for. So, yeah,
That
a
is a
lot.
whirlwind. That that's crazy. Also, that travel schedule. I don't know how you are alive still, let alone functioning at the rate that you are. I mean, the pandemic definitely was a big old reset button for a lot of
A
us
lot of people.
in this world, right? I mean, for sure. I mean, and that's perfectly exemplified in your situation. So now that you've kind of reached this part, right? We are up to date finally. We have reached the end of our Tarantinoing, if you will. We are now back at the beginning of this story, and you have been recognized for your talent, your level of education, the way that you've educated in the past, your work, right? I mean, so many elements of what you're doing now is getting recognized for the experience that you've had. I guess my question is really what's next then for you? Like what is your plan from here on out, right? Cuz you've hit a lot of these like check boxes that a lot of people for a long time have on their vision board if they make one, right? It's
Yeah.
I'm going to be in a suite, I want to be in a sola, and I want to be on the faces of sola, right? If I'm going to be in a salon, I want to make the top 100 stylists, right?
Yeah.
I want to be at the BTC awards and I want to win something, right? Like
Yeah.
all these things, I want to be ranked, and you get to this part, right? You've checked off a lot of these boxes. It feels like you're at the peak of this mountain, but as you know, as someone who's set goals and achieved them in the past, right? The top of the mountain is really just a great vantage point to see what else is achievable. What are you seeing now that you've kind of hit this more traditional peak and now you're kind of starting this next phase, it would seem, and from afar, right? As we watch you kind of evolve and go forward here, what's the next step for
Yeah.
you?
So I will say I'm very lucky and honored that I don't necessarily do things any different than everyone else, right? I just work really hard on what I want to do. There's so many amazing people that are where I am in their industry, where they're at in their career. But as far as me, like, I'm not done yet, babes. Like, I'm this
Yeah.
I'm I'm at that peak and then I'm ready. Let's get it. But my next thing that I'm actually working on, and you kind of lightly talked about, um, is starting in January 2024. This last 6 to 8 months, I've really been pouring my whole heart and soul into launching my own education, my own unbranded education, something where everyone is welcome. It doesn't matter the brand that you use. And I've got to do a lot of cool stuff. I know I keep saying that, but I kind of brought in aspects of everything that I've got to do of working as an on-set stylist, working at New York Fashion Week, working with these brands and working with, just individual incredible mentors in this industry, right? And building this education around it of something that I was on that floor, right? I was on doing the grind work as an educator all the way up that I seen is missing in our industry and missing in our education in our industry. And so I'm so excited because that fire, right? It's lit
Oh yeah.
again and we're doing it. And I'm so excited to share it with the world, because no one else is doing it the way I'm doing it, right? And like giving that whole different perspective, giving that whole different like outlook on it. Um, I am so, so, so excited to launch it in January. Yeah.
So it's called Free Your Mind Education. Let's make
Yeah.
sure we put that out there for everyone, right? And so it's unbranded education, which I
Yeah.
think for you is key also because it's more inclusive, right? You
Yeah.
don't have to be a part or affiliated with any one thing,
Yeah.
right? So from your perspective, then, is it education on technique? Is it education on business ownership? Like where are you focusing, or all of it, right? Is it kind of everything rolled into one? Where are you starting? Let's put it there, because obviously if we've learned anything about you this at this point in our conversation, it's you start from one spot and then you just roll with it and grow as you
Yeah.
need to, right? As the opportunities kind of flow. But where are you starting? Like where are you focusing in January? Like launch, the buttons hit, right? It's up. What are
That
you
it's
focusing on?
happening. The first thing that I'm focusing on, and that's where, like, again, the universe has kind of pushed me into this journey of like, I was like, oh, I'm going to do cutting. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it just didn't feel right. And then the last time I was at New York Fashion Week, I had so many people reach out to me and they were like, how do you build a kit? Why do I need these tools? How do I do this look? How do I tie a hair bungee? Like the most simplest thing. So my initial first launch of classes is taking New York Fashion Week and simplifying them so they're easy to use and easy to understand behind the chair. But the biggest thing is they are bring your own products. So I give you a list of what you need so you can learn how to build out your kit, why you need certain tools, what you need. And then you bring the products that you're already using behind the chair and I teach you how to do those looks with whatever you're already utilizing. You don't have to
Amazing.
buy into these crazy products and everything. And we're not against big brands. I 100% agree with brands and products. We need them in our industry. But I don't think that you have to be connected to a big brand to deliver amazing, rad education.
Amazing. I love it. It's so
Thank you.
great. It just can affect so many more people, and I think that's a
Yeah.
really smart way to do it. As someone obviously who's building a brand that is obviously not tied to any one particular kind of method, right? We're just here to elevate everyone in the industry if we can,
100%.
and do our best at doing that within our own little niche, right? The marketing portion. Okay. So we're kind of hitting the end of the interview here, and I want to leave you the opportunity with one main last question. And again, with you specifically, I think this makes a lot of sense. And that question for you, Kimberly, is if you were to give, and this is going to be fairly standard, but if you were to give one piece of advice for folks who are in a salon suite right now, right? They're feeling a little burnout, they're feeling run down, or they're feeling uninspired, right? If you were to sit them down and say to them like one thing that has gotten you through it all, and we've kind of talked about how education is a big part of how you get through it, But if they're kind of wishy-washy on like, oh man, I don't know if this is for me, what are you saying to them? Right? If they're like, Kim, you've done it. You've been in this industry for 14 years on your own. What do I do? Right? Now everyone's gonna be different, but if you could come up with like a sentence, two sentences, maybe a paragraph, what does that look like? What is that main piece of advice you're going to give to someone who's struggling?
If you could have any life in 5 years, what would it be? And if they say, behind the chair, I want to have a successful salon, then I would say, what are the steps to get you there? What do you think the steps are? Take those steps, even if they're big steps, and then break them down into smaller steps. And then from them, make those steps easily accessible or easily achievable. Build your dream, build your own empire, I guess. Believe in yourself. Be authentically you. There's so much that I'm like,
well, I think you're absolutely right. It's just moving in the direction of your goal, whether that's a small step forward or a jump and a leap and a hop, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to look amazing. It can just be get up and be everything that you can be today for your clients so that they want to refer you to someone else that they know, right? That's a very common step that some people lose sight of because it's like one of the many ones that gets you to that next rung. Again, and I love that you prefaced it with, if you want to be a salon owner in 5 years, if you in 5 years want to live a life where this is still in your sphere, in your realm of success, then do this. If that's not it, that's not for you, right?
It's
That's a
not for
great
you.
qualifier.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so good. So, Kimberly, thank you so much. For everyone who's listening, you can reach out to Kimberly Loomis on Instagram. She has some really fun behind the scenes content. She also has links to, again, the Free Your Mind education link is in her bio there. So you can go check that out, especially once the new year hits for 2024. And then, so Kimberly, anything else that you want to plug or you wish to impart to the audience before you leave here? I just want to make sure that you have the floor for as long and for what you want.
No, I would just say thank you guys for this amazing opportunity. And to anyone that has listened right this far into this podcast, you've already invested so much in us. And I'm always here. If you ever need anything, please hit me up in my DMs for any questions or any kind of help that if I don't have the answers for you, I will send you in the direction of someone that can possibly help you. But just believe in yourself and be authentically you. And even if you feel like no one else is cheering for you, I'm cheering for you, and keep going. You got this.
I love it. Amazing. Well, thank you for being here, Kimberly. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'm sure we'll be talking to you again soon.
Yes. Thanks, guys.